Many thanks to DayZ Podcast, Pandemonium, Lion Lost, Felt Destruction Vanilla servers, Atlas, Mutated Jurassic Outbreak servers, One Original DayZ servers, and Dusk Vanilla servers for making this video possible. The reintroduction of the sword and the mace in 1.21 sets a new benchmark for the performance of a melee weapon in DayZ because these two weapons make for the best one-handed and best two-handed weapon in the game, with just the mace being better than most two-handers that are available. So in this video we're going to compare the sword and the mace to the previous best melee weapons in DayZ, demonstrate the raw power of the sword, and why both of these rare weapons are not just useful at killing stuff. The mace was first seen on the previous engine for DayZ, which was called the flanged mace back then, now spawning in the same places that it did then, which is the new historical loot tag, which is where the castles are on Chernarus. On Livonia though, due to a lack of castles I guess, this mace spawns at hunting locations instead. The mace is a one-handed melee weapon that has 8 slots in size, fits into the shoulder slot and cannot be repaired using any tool currently available in DayZ, but it does have a very high durability. Like other one-handed melee weapons, it has the same animations and attack speeds of weapons already in the game, but unlike a lot of weapons, it cannot be used to suicide with. Each normal attack with the mace inflicts 25 health damage and 35 shock damage, so quite high for a one-handed weapon, especially as its attack speed allows for one hit every 2/3 of a second, and due to the flanged nature of the head of this mace, this weapon has a very high chance to cause bleeding with every single hit, but cannot be used to stealth kill infected. Uniquely for the mace, it can be used to break open pumpkins, breaking it somehow into perfectly cut slices while giving you seeds too, but cannot be used to cut open any other type of produce, and cannot be used as any kind of knife for crafting. The mace can open cans very badly, spilling around 60% of the contents inside, so it's one of the worst tools in DayZ you can use to open cans with, but if you do have a mace, you also have an almost unlimited supply of knives. By using the mace on any rock-like texture in DayZ, you can very awkwardly mine a large stone, which, using the mace again, can be split into 3 smaller stones, and then using 2 small stones together, you've got yourself a stone knife. So you've got basically unlimited stone knives when using the mace, making the mace much more than a simple one-handed melee weapon. Better than the mace, the sword was also in the previous version of DayZ, and it was better back then too, but it was very lackluster compared to the fire axe, for example, or other stronger melee weapons back then. In DayZ 1.21, the tables have turned though, because the sword is now the best two-handed melee weapon in the game, but is much more powerful than the mace. The sword spawns in the same loot locations that the mace does, castles on Chernarus and hunting locations on Livonia, with both the mace and the sword having the exact same chance to spawn. The sword is twice the size at 16 slots in the inventory compared to the mace, but does fit into the shoulder slot too, and unlike the mace can be repaired with a sharpening or whetstone, working much like the whetstone does on knives. Unlike the mace though, the sword can stealth kill, which was added to the game files 2 patches ago in patch 1.19, so while it is bugged and it gets you attached to the infected, so I guess that's why they've removed it for now, it's a possibility that in the future the devs will release an animation to stealth kill infected with two-handed weapons. To keep us company for now, the devs have gifted us a shiny but brutal new suicide animation that comes with new sound effects too. On top of this, the animation for swinging the sword as a normal attack or as a heavy attack is a new addition to DayZ, giving the sword a very fast attack speed. However, like all other melee weapons in DayZ, you cannot hit multiple enemies with one attack, and you cannot chop off people's heads, arms or legs. Against players and infected, the normal attack of the sword will inflict 35 health damage and a huge 45 shock damage per attack, so it can KO players in just 2 normal attacks, or it can kill them outright in 2 heavy attacks because it does 50 damage, which has a decent reach too. Blocking or parrying with a sword won't make a metal deflection sound, so it won't sound like you're having a sword fight when somebody else has a sword, but a new thud sound has been added this patch, which is heard when you block a melee attack. Like the mace, the sword can open cans, but it does it very badly too, spilling around 60% as well, even though the sword works perfectly as a knife, minus the stealth killing ability of course. So the sword can cut open fruit and vegetables, skin animals and players, cut up clothes to rags, peel potatoes, gather from bushes and gather bark from trees, but it cannot chop down trees. It also cannot cut the wire of a tripwire trap, cannot be used to mine or dig garden plots, and you cannot throw the sword or the mace to inflict damage. To demonstrate how much more the mace and sword are to similar weapons, I've lined up 3 good one-handed weapons to compare the mace to, and 3 good two-handers versus the sword. Against the one-handed mace, I've placed a machete, hatchet and crowbar, all of which coincidentally have the same attack speed, and all do the same damage at 15 health damage and 20 shock damage. These three rank among the best one-handed weapons available in DayZ, outputting the exact same damage per second of 22.48 and capable of KOing a player in 2.668 seconds. The Mace attacks at the same speed of these three and has the same 1.4 meter reach too, but it does inflict 10 extra health damage per hit and a huge 15 extra shock damage per hit too, capable of outputting 15 more health damage per second at 37.48 with 15 extra shock damage per hit, allowing it to KO a player in 2 seconds instead. In terms of damage output then, this makes the Mace 66% better than these three weapons. The sword is a little bit more complicated to compare because two-handeds have fairly unique stats compared to one-handed weapons. The three weapons I'm going to compare to the sword: the fire axe, the shovel, and the sledgehammer. Of these three, the sledgehammer is without question the best, dishing out 28.73 health damage per second, along with KOing a player in just 1.74 seconds, putting it way out in front of the other two, and basically all other weapons in DayZ. However, if we compare this to the sword, there is no competition here as it produces 15 more health damage per second compared to the sledgehammer, while also KOing a player slightly faster too. In terms of health damage output then, this makes the sword 52% better than the sledgehammer is, standing head and shoulders above the rest. For health damage per second and KO time, the sword is without question the best melee weapon in DayZ, with the Mace being the best one-handed weapon, which is also better than most two-handed weapons in DayZ at the moment, including the sledgehammer when you compare just the health damage output. So the Mace is better than the sledgehammer. The biggest drawback with the sword and the Mace though are how hard they are to find compared to the other weapons I've just compared them to. For example, there are 70 sledgehammers on a server, but there can only be 2 of a Mace or 2 of a sword. So the sword and Mace are kind of like the LAR and the SVD of the melee world, extremely powerful but also not easy to find. Even though this is the case, I believe players will still hunt down the sword for its ability to quickly dispose of infected and players, and how it does the most damage per second against base walls while being repairable too. More likely than not, players will stumble across a sword while hunting down the new knight armor, with this new knight armor changing the meta dramatically when it comes to melee weapon protection, as just one of these 5 medieval themed pieces that was added this patch can block up to 70% of your melee weapon damage. That number gets higher the more knight armor that you wear. If you're going up against somebody that has this armor and you only have a melee weapon to your name, most of the time it's going to be better to run away and live to fight another day, because this new armor offers next level defense against all types of attack in DayZ, even protecting you from bullets and explosives, which you can learn about more in this dedicated video for armor here. Now in the future, I'll add these 2 new powerful weapons to the WOBO Tools website so all of their stats can be laid bare there, along with all other melee weapons to compare them to, explosives and armor in DayZ 2. That's the plan for the website. If you want to see that happen sooner, please do support WOBO on Patreon, as it's currently the only way that the website gets funded, while also being the best method to support my videos on here, because it's the generous people that support WOBO financially that make all of this possible, so thank them for allowing me to create this type of content for all of us to benefit from. Thank you very much for listening, for your generous support, and for watching this video. Have a good day.